this picture right here. It's a great picture. Yeah, those guys, that family. Their farm was down this road here back in 1894. And so today we're going to metal detect and we're going to see if we can find anything that they left behind so that we can learn more about them. Yeah. I found the house. So the house, like every other house in the 1800s, had a stone foundation. And the house was up there on that hill. I already know what it is because I dig everything first, but so they had a house with a stone foundation like everyone did in the 1800s, and they had horses. Pretty good. This horse, I think, is more of like a transportation horse rather than like a big draft horse that was used for heavy work on the farm. This was 1890s, so by that time machines had come into play around here. So I think you needed less and less reliance on draft horses. Okay, so what do you think this is right here? What does that look like? That. So isn't that from like a horse bridle, you think? I think that's from a horse bridle. So far, we found nothing special. This right here is a wheel bearing for some type of wagon. Probably something that looked like this right here. This farm right here was several miles away from town and several miles away from the neighbors. So your horse was your lifeline. And so you find horse stuff. So they lived in a house with a rock foundation and they had horses and they did some home canning. So far, typical family from 1890s. Alright, I don't show the digging for everything, but this is a heavy piece of Babbitt bearing. So that tells us a little bit more. This right here is a piece of Babbitt bearing, which is like lead's cousin, and it's on the more modern farm equipment. So they probably had equipment that was like on the newer side. It wasn't like old pioneer stuff. So yeah, Babbitt bearing. There's a debris field coming down this hill. Well, the house was up on top of that hill, which is so overgrown that you can't even get up there. You can't detect up there. But I can see that there's debris coming down the hill from years ago. They must have went to the back porch of the house and just thrown stuff. See that right there? Every homestead has that. These clamshells are always at 1800s homesteads. Every 1800s homestead has these freshwater clams. They must have gone to the market downtown and bought this. And this would have been like fresh seafood. So we know that they ate freshwater clams, and most of the old homesteads have these just all over the yard. Yeah. That's a nice old bottle there. Let me show you a close-up. So, I reckon that they were the type of people that would take medicine. There's some really traditional Amish people that lived here. I don't know if they would have agreed with taking modern day medicine. They may have made their own. So I reckon that this family wasn't like that. Also, I found 3 things at one time. I found some crockery here, so that meant that they made fermented pickles or sauerkraut. I also found the remnants of coal. So I know that they must have burned coal, and maybe the old man, William was his name, maybe he just got too old and tired to cut firewood, so he said, forget it, we're buying coal. I see something really good right here. Purple glass, manganese glass. All right, so you see how purple that glass is? Yep, manganese glass. So something in their house, in their kitchen, had that manganese based clear glass. Of course it's purple now. I just found 2 more things crawling around on the ground here. It's impossible to metal detect in here, but the house was up there and it looks like they just threw stuff down the hill. So I found 2 interesting things. Look, here we have Flow blueware, right? This is old. This might be old. Look at it. All right, you see how like the blue color is kind of like bleeding out of the design? So the newer style blueware doesn't have that. The lines are really distinct, but this is kind of like flowing. I thought it was a piece of bone, but it's got a hole in it, perfectly round hole. And listen to this. If that's the old man's clay pipe, then that's a good find, to find something from the old woman and the old man. Wow. There's 5 generations of people in this picture. Here we have Catherine Eads, the great-great-grandmother at 93. William Eads, her son, at 74. Henry Eads, his son, at 47. Millie, his daughter, at 23, and the baby, it's a baby boy, a 1-year-old baby boy named Miles. And if you look at how cold and stoic and staunch everyone is, Miles kind of gives it away with how happy he looks. At this period, things were getting better for children in particular. This probably 1904, this picture was taken. The idea of a childhood was changing. If you look at the old farmers, their idea of a childhood was you raise a kid until they're old enough to actually make themselves useful in work, and then they went to work. But around 1900, that started to change, and we know that because there was more stories for kids, there was books written for kids, there was nursery rhymes and more, childish poems and childish songs and games and toys. And so we can gather that during this period, the idea of childhood became something that that needed to be cherished. And so this kid was really fortunate. And so from my research, I gathered that the two old folks, they lived in that farmhouse towards the end of its existence. And so I found some, just nothing mind-blowing, I found some relics, just utilitarian things. The one thing that stuck out to me was the pipe stem. That is definitely a pipe stem. And so it's made out of this type of clay right here, which we still have. And so this example right here would be what they looked like back in the 1700s. During the 1800s, they had shrunk considerably. But this is where the phrase "to the bitter end" came from. You know, in America we have this phrase, you know, we're gonna fight until the bitter end. The bitter end came from back in the days when you had these long pipes and they were in taverns. So like anyone could smoke one if they wanted to. And so what you would do is you would break the tip off so that you would have a fresh tip. And over time, like, the pipes became shorter and shorter and shorter, and as it was smoked for longer and longer, tobacco residue would build up in the pipe stem. And so by the time you got down to the end, the tobacco residue made it very, very bitter. And so that's where the phrase "to the bitter end" came from. So that was a fascinating story. It was hard work to go out there, and there's more stuff out there. I just couldn't find it. It was a really rough place to detect, and so I found what I found.